So thank you, Sean, for being our Zoom manager again today. Sean has been such a huge support to our team, and we really appreciate it. So I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for sharing some of your Sunday afternoon with us. This is our second conversation based on the webinar, Human Impact to Mountain Glaciers, Oceans, and Our Response, which Dr. Richard Waugh, my brother, presented to us last Sunday. And as Lori was saying just before we muted everybody, that webinar is on our website, so you can review it or view it for the first time if you didn't have a chance, along with all of our other webinars. Rich is not able to be with us today. He is at a family gathering with his own children. And so we will be having conversations among ourselves about what he shared with us. If, however, you have questions that you would like to direct to Rich, go ahead and send them to me in the chat box. And although they will not be answered today, I will take those to Rich when we do our podcast. It will be later in the month. And I will use your questions, some of your questions in that podcast. So let's start out with a breakout group. We would like you to think about the last few webinars that you've seen and talk to one another about these two questions. How has your understanding of the climate crisis changed as a result of the recent webinars? How has your understanding changed? And then the second question, how is your commitment to transform your lifestyle changing? We're hoping that many of you are in the process of thinking about that and beginning to make changes in your lifestyle. How is that happening for you? Rod has posted those in the chat, so if you need to refer back to the questions. And Sean now is going to break us into groups of about 4 people, and you'll have 20 minutes to share with one another on these two questions, and I'll see you at the end here. I think we've got everybody back. Joan, would you like to carry on with our the summary of the key points from our webinar?
Thanks, Susan. So welcome back. We hope you enjoyed your conversation. We want to take a few minutes to give you the opportunity to put in the chat what you remember from the webinar, which was a whole week ago. What impacted you the most? What new understanding did you come away with? What has stuck with you over this past week? And while you're doing that, just give you a few minutes. We know that we're not a gathering of speed typists. Susan and I will read the responses as they come in. And you may as well start, Susan. You're muted, Susan. Susan, you're still muted.
Did you know you can't mute when the chat is filling the screen? You can't unmute when the chat is filling the screen. Okay, consumerism is killing the planet.
I was surprised that some glaciers cannot recover no matter what.
3.6 billion atomic bombs worth of heat energy has already been put into the ocean.
The temperature rise in Europe.
The importance of our oceans, as 93% of carbon is stored there.
The danger of increased acidity of the ocean.
The rising of the oceans and possible overflowing the low areas of waterfronts.
We must be brave enough to be changed.
Every change in energy technology throughout history has produced an economic boom.
Vast preponderance of decreased size of glaciers. The variation from glacial melt causing flooding and then drought over time.
I appreciated the alternative interpretations of the creation myth in Genesis. What do you make of the prohibition against the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil in Genesis 2:17 and the tree of life, Genesis 3:22? And I will refer that question to Rich in the podcast and have him talk about it. I wonder if it warns us about the dangers of technology. Perhaps being smart is a self-limiting evolutionary experiment. Interesting.
3 options. God is nature. Oh, sorry. It moved. 3 options. Do nothing. Tech fixes to maintain consumer lifestyle, changing lifestyles of individuals and corporations.
God is nature. Creation is sacred. Live like we believe that.
So Rod, if you'll put the PowerPoint up now, I'll just briefly go through what the team put together as our memory of the key points. And if people keep typing in the chat, Susan will read them when I'm finished. That may be news to you, Susan.
No, that's fine.
So the first, topic was mountain glaciers. And we learned a lot of things, some of which have come out in the chat. But this whole concept that there's more than 2 billion people, more than a quarter of the world's human population, is at serious risk of insufficient water and food as a result. And that will push so many more people into poverty, increase national debt as countries struggle to find expensive solution, and increase the likelihood of wars and international serious armed conflicts. And then there was the oceans. And, again, we had some great information, but again, the huge impacts on food and economic security for billions of people as the oceans and as the fisheries collapse. And then we moved on to what it is that we can do, the human responses. And as been mentioned in the chat, one option is to do nothing, and that's a pretty short-term option because it's rapidly getting to the point where we have to do something. Technological fixes are the current thrust of almost every country and every corporation. They want to do technological fixes that can get us out of this without us having to affect our consumerism lifestyle and without threatening the current world economic models focusing on GDP and growth every year. But that the lifestyle changes, rethinking how we live, are really what's essential and what's going to be needed to get us out of this, and that we need to rethink how we live in terms of structural and political systems. We need to raise our voices and be advocates. Economic systems. Next month we'll be looking at the circular economy, but ways to decrease our consumer consumption lifestyle and our individual and Corbin. I can talk. I learned. individual and corporate response in terms of making the changes that are needed for the common good to reduce our carbon footprint. And lastly was the topic of sacredness of creation and some really interesting points that had not been raised before. And that the bottom line is if we truly accept the sacredness of creation, then harming it becomes blasphemous. So those were some of the things that we remembered. And Susan, I think I've seen something come through in the chat.
Yes. Judy added, Richard said, many people in the world want this change. That is to do whatever is necessary to make a positive difference. And that was one of the things that gave him hope, is that, as Lori commented on that, yes, thanks for the reminder, Judy. Rich encouraged us to remember we really are not alone, which is part of why we are doing this webinar.
So thank you.
I'd like to add one more thing. Rich stressed over and over that the most important thing that we can do is to shift our thinking from individualism and independence to community, what's good for the community, not for me, and interdependence. So that was something he spoke very strongly about.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll turn it over to Lori now.
Well, my task is to invite us to come back into breakout groups, but coming into them with that that ending part of Rich's seminar, which was to recognize the difference between dominion-based interpretations of really ancient scriptures and those interpretations also in scripture that have to do with the sacredness of creation and how it is as people of faith we respond. Do we respond with models that have been used to generate it's okay to dominate and use each other, or is there something to the sacredness of creation? So here's the question that we really want to ask, because we bring our own unique possibilities to this conversation, this global conversation, as a community of faith engaged in what we hope is a prophetic endeavor. How can we apply our enduring principles to the challenge of climate change as a faithful response? And as we go into our breakout groups with this question, I want to encourage us. Yes, sacredness of creation is obvious, but we have several other enduring principles. And part of the question is, can we look at the whole suite of enduring principles? I think we have a slide here that has them on them. Do we? To remember and ask ourselves whether and how the rest of the enduring principles that we have chosen as a faith community might also be part of a larger endeavor towards interdependence rather than independence of individuals. So just as a reminder, grace and generosity, sacredness of creation, continuing revelation, the worth of all persons, which I'm voting to change to worth of all creatures, but that's me. All are called, responsible choices, pursuit of peace, unity and diversity, and blessings of community. So just getting a chance to re-engage your memory around enduring principles and how do each one of these get brought to bear on a faithful response to climate change? And Rod just put those in the chat. We can take those into our chat. And we're gonna have about 25 minutes, I think, 20 to 25 minutes if we're on time here.
Excuse me, Rod, that was the wrong question in the chat box. That was from the first breakout group.
Yeah, so the questions, while Rod's getting that into the chat boxes, are how can we apply our enduring principles to the challenge of climate change in a faithful response? And where do you see a need to change systems, legislation, local community response to the growing impact of climate disruption? So I think we were going to put the question back up. How can we apply? Yeah, so we're ready for our breakout groups.
Welcome back. Rod is going to lead us when he gets unmuted. He's going to lead us now in some reporting back. So Rod, take it away.
Yes, welcome back, everyone. What we want to do then, just for a few minutes, is just share more broadly. We each, I know our group could have gone on for for quite a while. So we'd like to sort of hear from the other groups some of the key takeaways that you have come up with. So if you could simply put in the chat, again, that'll be our main method, just to quickly hear back the key points. Oh yeah, we never got around to this, or oh, I never thought of that. So just put into the chat some of the key points. And again, we will have, let's see, looks like Susan and Laurie are going to read out those insights that you picked up or that you shared that you felt were particularly relevant to the questions today. And that sort of, again, broadens the scope and shares more widely our kind of collective wisdom that hopefully is growing as this series proceeds. Now, I suppose it would help if I had my chat open as well.
Well, I'll start. I'll read Susan's, and then we'll go back and forth. Is that right, Susan?
Right.
Yeah. So Susan says, all the enduring principles apply to our responses to climate change. Every single one has embedded in it guidelines we need to use in our lifestyle and response.
And I have to give Judy Luffman credit for that comment, but I thought it was important. Join activist groups, educate yourself, and then teach others.
An intriguing 3 words: caretakers versus consumers.
Responsible choices, awareness of our actions. Look to what our ancestors did before plastics.
Unity in diversity. We need to share with and listen to all others instead of trying to fix or change others.
Communicate compassionately. Meet people where they are.
Blessings of community, interdependence instead of independence.
We are all on the same journey, but in a variety of boats. Interesting comment.
It's so much easier to make sustained hard changes when we join together in community. Blessings of community are so important.
This process is also a part of continuing revelation.
From one member at Continuing Revelation again. It started with DC Doctrine and Covenants 150 30 years ago, and now a more directed insight in recent revelations.
Unity in diversity. See beauty in every living thing, every being. All are called. All.
Joy. Jesus first, others second, then yourself. Every lifestyle change is a step forward.
Teach or learn composting.
Generosity can be the basis for a new economy where needs are met.
Pursue peace. There will be no peace without our voices and our action.
Encourage politicians to do better for the whole. For the whole.
As we generously share what we are learning about climate change, do it full of grace and love.
Okay, if there may be some of you who are really slow typists like myself. I sort of always have trouble getting first of all, my thoughts into words and then typing them out and getting them on. Feel free to keep sharing. Yeah, we got a couple more. I'll let them go.
Sacredness of creation, the starting point and the ending point.
Encouraging recycling of all consumer goods.
Yeah.
responsible choices.
Excellent.
So by all means, as more ideas take shape, feel free to share those. Everyone then can read them and take value from them. At this point, we're going to then move towards the close of our session. And if I've got it right, Joan is going to lead us in a Lectio Divina on one of our chief poems. So I will get that poem up. And Joan, I will let you take it from there.
Thanks, Rod. We want to take a few moments to engage in a spiritual practice, engage in prayer together through the practice of praying a text. And so I invite you to get into a comfortable position, wherever you're comfortable, with your eyes open or closed, whatever works for you. And let your breathing deepen as you shift your awareness from your mind and the thinking that we've been engaged in so busily over this past hour to your body and your spirit, and just becoming aware of where you're at and how you come to this moment. And just let your breathing deepen and open you to a time of prayer, of being together in a posture of prayer with this entire community. For our text today, we're going to use our poem, A Bridge of Hope. And I invite you to let it wash over you. See what shimmers for you, where your attention is drawn. Begin to sense the gentle whisper of the Spirit's attention, drawing your attention to the invitations in your life to respond. When we come to the abyss, snakes, fire, midnight hole, nightmares, whatever down below, we know, we must sing the old refrain of hope. It is only by singing out we are heard. It is the raising of the voice that changes the singer. We must be brave enough to be changed. For in the speaking we are changed. In the trying to name, we are discovered. It is the taking of the step that calls. It is the taking of the step that calls the earth to rise, to meet it. What needs to be found can only be built stone by stone, pebble by pebble, hope by hope, word by word. Many speakers, many singers, many builders, waiting to be told what to do. But what is needed has never been done before. We all must be the blind leaders in the dark, mouths dry and singing prayers off key, our hands full of dust and pebbles and our grandmother's seeds. Be the mad woman leading the way. Trust your love. And trust this path will change you. Trust that others will join you. The only way off the crumbling cliff is to build this bridge. As you go every day to the edge of what you know of yourself, and then go beyond. There you will find others singing a familiar song, becoming a new way together. There will be no name for this new place until long after we are gone. But you feel it calling, praying you into being. Go fly. Do it now. I will join you. Amen.
It's good that we, along with our deliberations, also take that contemplative pause that can sometimes speak more deeply, and that together can build the type of people that we need to become and that God wants us to become. So I appreciate everybody's sharing today. It, at least again, and everything I've heard has been well considered, well thought out, much appreciated. We still have a way to go with this series, and that's what we'll just briefly let you know. Next month, then we sort of start into a new aspect of our series where we look at some of these systemic solutions. Specifically, one aspect of the economy, which I think as has been noted by Rich and others, is fairly fundamental. We, in particular, will be looking at the circular economy. Now, that's just one aspect. I sort of consider consumerism a separate topic that we'll be looking to put into place. That's sort of a layer on top of the basic economics. But the basic economics have to change if we're to succeed. So as you note, today was, or sorry, as you can see, today was the final conversation on the human impact, and very appreciative again of Richard Waugh, Dr. Richard Waugh, for the insights he gave. And then next, as I say, starting in, well, I guess 3 weeks, will be our next full session. Again, systemic solutions transforming to the circular economy. People have been working at, this is, you know, again, you often feel isolated, or you often feel, my gosh, what can individuals do, and so on. But countless people have been working sort of since Doctrine and Covenants 150, you know, back in the 70s. And some people, of course, going back earlier, you just think of Rachel Carson's book. So there's been a lot of progress made. And one of them is this notion of the circular economy. So the guest presenter is actually going to be from industry itself. Lugano Kapambua. You'd think I would know his name after all this. He worked for many years on a $5 billion project. Now, Andrew from the UK would know of the Canary Wharfs project. This was basically a city, basically building a city within a city. And he was sort of the lead consultant on that. So he has a lot of insight into the workings of cities. Now, that's not going to be the focus, but I do hope he's going to spend a little time, because cities have become quite a key focus with environmental groups. And that's because they are so much more nimble, so much closer to us, and we can affect change at that level when the national level is, you know, much more difficult. But after that, he then created this company and is now CEO of Loop Cycle, that deals directly with the circular economy. So he is completely immersed in helping create this economy that doesn't exist yet. So he's going to be a real gem of a presenter to share the insights that he is recognizing as he tries to, you know, reshape these economic dynamics. So that's what's coming up next month. I'm for sure looking forward to it. And then, as you can see further below, there are other topics. We are not finished. During the summer, we do have some reunion materials for anyone who is interested. You can simply go to the website and use the contact us form to get those reunion resources if you would like to use them, or contact any one of us directly, doesn't matter. And then come the fall, you can see in the works, we still have numerous other topics that we want to deal with. So that then concludes things for today and gives you a sense of where we are and where we want to go. Again, I will stop sharing. All of that information is up on the website, the full schedule that we have. And I simply, again, want to thank everybody for taking this afternoon time to share what we all consider is such a life-critical topic. And so glad that you all joined us, and look forward to continuing the conversation. So at this point, Sean, you can unmute everybody. We can say our goodbyes. And again, thanks for participating. And again, at any point, feel free to communicate with us any concerns or ideas or whatever that you have. Thanks for being with us today, and go in peace.